Hi, we're at Wasteland TV. We are here with...
John Harrison.
What does John Harrison do?
I'm an author. I've
Really?
written several books.
Really?
Correct.
Wow.
So I've written the Shadow Saga, which is a fantasy series following a group of individuals as they find their place in the dark world known as Senecus.
Let's see the book cover of Senecus' book.
Will you hand me a Shadow Dance, please?
Because it's always nice to see what we're talking about.
So here is the first book in the series.
Ooh, first
Shadow
book in the
Dance.
series.
And
There's the second book coming our way.
Here's the second book in the series.
Ooh.
Thank you. And the third book has two different covers. Has two different covers.
Don't you love dominoes?
Yes, I do. They're great.
Yes. Especially when they're your product.
The limited edition white cover, there's only going to be 100 of these made. And the standard edition black cover. Within the ones that I sell, if you see me directly, and I still have any left, there's 25 of these black cover books that have a limited print of one of the characters, Skara,
nice.
in it. All of the white books have the same print in it. If you buy this book on Amazon, I'm sorry to say you're not going to get the print.
How come?
Because they were for the book launch for this weekend. So we did them for this weekend.
That is nice.
When I run out of them, I'm out of them. They're done. They've all been numbered. So within this one, this number.
So can I have one?
Yes. For the interview, I will give you.
Awesome! We get a...
So this one is number 10 of 25.
Awesome!
So yeah. As payment and gratitude for being.
Oh, you didn't need to do that, but this is awesome though.
No, yeah. And
I can put it on my trophy
I didn't
thing.
need to. I like to. And this is the map of Senecus.
Oh, it's like the old classic Dungeons and Dragons.
Very similar. So it was.
I would actually use that as a Dungeons and Dragons map, ironically.
And that's perfectly fine.
Because it's the lazy man's way of doing a game.
Exactly. And this is actually on metal paper.
Is it really?
Yep. So it's metallic paper. It won't smear, run, wrinkle. It's got a sheen to it.
And it's got a nice ivory look to it.
Exactly.
I use that paint. That's why. And the coffee mug's on the back.
And it's got my coffee mug logo on the back.
So let's hear the story about the coffee mug logo. That is just a great story.
So my father designed the House of Harrison logo, which is just the H with the house on it.
Did he do this because he was fascinated with Asian art?
Sort of. So he was stationed in Okinawa for the first 9 years of my life.
I could tell that because of the brushstrokes of it, that it was probably Japan or China.
Yes, and so we were stationed in Okinawa. He was a previous Vietnam vet. He'd been to Korea also. And he got stationed in Japan, and he decided he was going to get into leatherworking and ceramics. But he wanted to come up with something quick instead of trying to etch his name into leather.
Oh, it's like baseball players where it's like a doctor's signature, a line and a letter.
Yes, exactly. So he did the H as more of what the Japanese have stamps that are your official signature. And so he did that as his stamp. Before he passed, I asked him if I could use it moving forward as a member of the House of Harrison, and he said yes. And so I printed it out. I got it looking how I wanted it, printed it out. Someone came to talk to me. I was drinking coffee, and I set my coffee mug on it by accident. I picked it up, and it had this distinctive ring. So I said, perfect. That is now my...
After you got over the whole scare of, oh my God, I ruined Dad's logo.
Pretty much.
And then once it dried...
Once it dried, it looked really good. I was really impressed.
Forgive me, Dad, but I love it.
Yeah, Dad, I hope you understand, this is now mine. This is now how I roll. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun and happy that
So what made you decide to write a fantasy-based story?
Another great question. So it was a bet. I was going to school full-time at Boise State University in Boise, Idaho. I was working full-time night shift at Hewlett-Packard as an IT dispatcher. And I was a manager, and one of my employees bet me I couldn't write a novel while doing all of that.
You know, that's the way Cycle of the Werewolf was wrote with Stephen King. He was at a writer's convention, and the writers took a bet that you could write a novel and it can only be over 12 months of the calendar. And Stephen King took the bet, and that's where Cycle of the Werewolf came from.
And see, betting is always a good way. What was on the line was a steak dinner from Texas Roadhouse. So I was like...
I've never eaten a steak at the Texas Roadhouse, so I'm going to have to take your word for it, how good, how bad it is.
Oh, it was great. I was allowed to pick anything I wanted, so I picked the largest steak they had. It was great. Unfortunately,
you couldn't
I
finish
never
the
got
steak?
it.
Oh.
I finished, I finished the book, but by the time I finished the book, he was no longer with Hewlett Packard. He'd married a doctor and moved to be a house husband. And
But it did inspire you to do it.
But it did inspire me to do it. And what I started writing was actually what's probably going to be in book 5 or 6, because after I handed him to read it, he was like, I know nothing about the characters, but I love it. So the flashbacks became Shadow Dance. From there, I realized that ends well before this one starts. There's gonna be a couple books in the middle, and so I started working on it. It was a lot. I let my dad and mom read the first rough draft. No intentions of getting it published. They loved it.
You know, that's the way Tolkien did Lord of the Rings, actually.
Really?
Remember, they were just children's stories he told his children to put them to bed.
Oh.
They weren't even supposed to be shared until his fellow writer friends said, these are really good, you should share them.
Well, yeah, and so, like I said, my folks loved it. Everyone that I let read loved it. I had like 6 or 7 close friends. They were all like, when is it coming out? And I told them never. And it took me moving to California. So that was 2007. It took me moving to California and having other people that I didn't know that I'd let read it say, hey, this is really good, you should publish it, before I published it in 2012. And one of the reasons I wasn't wanting to publish it was fear.
It's hard to share yourself out to the world because everyone's more judgmental. And then when you watch YouTube, you see them tearing apart stuff for the sake of tearing apart stuff.
Yes.
I've seen them rip apart good comic book stories. Movies I saw, you guys said this was bad. This wasn't a bad movie. You guys all just bandwagon to hate because hate sells.
Yes.
So you're not giving them a fair shake.
Well, and there was that fear that I was having. Another fear that I had was the pressure. So I knew that it wasn't a complete book, it was part of a series. And so part of the fear that I had was people
Oh, I thought it was
wanting
constipation
more.
when you said pressure.
No. It was fear of the, when's the next book? When's the next book? Which I did get that, and it actually pushed me, and I'm thankful for it. So what originally stopped me helped me. And it's good. So the book 3 was given to, the final draft was given to the editors late, about a week and a half.
Do you get, with late books, can they bump you from the production?
Yeah, so they could have delayed production time. I was trying to make it for this weekend for the Classic Comic Con here in Modesto. That was my goal. They said we have to have it by this date, no later. A week later, I got it to them, and they made magic happen. So
That's good. They must really like your work a lot for them to do that, because a lot of times they'll bump it back. Go, sorry, you messed up. We're not going to deal with it.
Yeah,
you missed your milestone.
And you're probably right. I didn't think of it that way. I just was like, oh, thank you, and I was just very thankful that they did it. But I didn't think about why they would go that extra mile. So that's great.
and so they probably liked what you've done with the other two, and they go, we can cut him a week slack because we're getting good responses from the people, good responses from our editors. Let's cut him the slack. He gets it in on time. If he doesn't, screw him.
Yeah. Well,
because we got a business to run, and that's what they got to look at too.
No, exactly. And so, but yeah, so Shadowflight was able to be released. We do have copies here. Those out there that do not know me or do not know how to get a hold of me, if you want to get a hold of me, you can go to the website down at the bottom. It is a shortened Google link.
3D.
Or you can look me up on Amazon. All my books are for sale on Amazon. Shadow Dance, Shadow Flight are both.
So are they all long novels, or do you have short stories in there they can buy on Kindle as well?
I do not have any short stories. You can buy them all on Kindle. They all are long novels.
Oh, the reason I was asking is because I know some writers just put short stories of Kindle up between novels.
Yeah, and I do have some short stories out of my website, not released to Kindle, so you can go out to my website and look up a couple short stories if you wish to. Those are free for anybody, no cost. I want to share as much writing as possible and inspire as many people.
It also keeps your skill level up when you're when you're feeling depressed that the book's not going out fast enough.
Correct. One of the things that I do when I'm stuck, so every writer gets stuck.
Oh, everyone does.
What I do when I get stuck is I shift to a different project. So one of the projects I've been working on for a while is a vampire book. It's not part of the Shadow Saga, and it's not necessarily a vampire story. It just happens that the main character is a vampire. So
So which is as writers for indie writers, what is the most predominant theme or genre that they write for?
Wow, that's a great question.
It is because I've stopped to think about it when I've been to enough of these cons and interviewed a few writers. They all have their own taste, but I've always noticed vampires are very predominant.
Vampires are because they're popular right now. I think a lot of themes follow what writers think are the thing right now. For the most part, there are individuals that do other things. Like my vampire story wasn't written because of that. It was written more along the lines of what happens if a vampire had amnesia, and how would they deal with that. And it's more a book of fighting against amnesia than it is a vampire book. It just so happens that the person that has amnesia is the vampire.
That's an interesting theory because you've always seen vampires who hate their lives because
Yes.
they live so long, vampires who regret their lives, vampires who have cross relationships in lives, both male females, but never one with amnesia I've heard of.
Well, yeah, and it's more like a vampire who can't remember their life but wants to. And so there's
Unlike the rest of the world, who with the vampire named Edward, we have amnesia about him altogether.
And who? Yeah. Okay. So that's what I do to fight writer block is I have all these stories and they keep piling up and short stories turn into novels eventually. So
Or a series of short stories like Robert E. Howard did with Conan.
yeah. And I might do that. I was trying to get an anthology together from other writers and myself. It was one titled Lock and Key, and that was a theory, is that any short story just had to have a lock and a key in it somewhere. I didn't care the genre. Still trying to get those stories collected.
It's kind of like heavy metal, classic heavy metal, where the Lochnar
Yep.
links all these stories together, and some were real heavy metal stories, others were made for the movie.
Exactly. And that's what gave me the idea of the lock and the key and trying to do something
Lochnar.
like that. The Lochnar. see, you're on top of it.
But any last words to writers who want to become writers?
Yes. Write. Don't stop writing. Read. Don't stop reading. There's no such thing as a bad first draft. You have permission to be a bad first draft writer. You have permission to really suck when it comes to a first draft.
You know,
Because
that's
you can't
when you go.
edit.
Let me edit for a minute. Your thing about sucking. Most people don't like going through the suck phase
True.
because they judge themselves before they even put it out there.
Yeah, and everyone is going to judge yourself. Don't. Without a bad first draft, you can't have a good novel.
Without
Because you
no, let's
can't-
put it this way: without failing, you can't have a good novel.
Correct.
Because I've told people this, they go, well, what is life about? Life is the study of failure. If you don't fail in life, you don't understand what it is to win.
True. And there's a Japanese saying, "Fall down 7 times, pick yourself up 8."
Or Batman, what do we do when we fall down, Bruce? We get back up.
Exactly. And so that's the same thing for writers, just more so because you can't edit a blank page.
No,
You can't. You can't make a blank page better without having something on it to begin with. So write. Don't stop yourself from writing, even if it's like a minute here or there. Don't worry if the ideas only come when you're in the middle of the grocery store. Take a piece of paper with you or record it on your cell phone or something. Just get it out of your head onto paper so you can then edit it into something great. And let others tell you how good it is, not yourself.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome.